Welcome to India New England News. A question for you is, do you think there are more weddings being held in Boston or outside the United States? And I'm talking about Indian American weddings. You will be surprised. Our guest today is Tanvi Rana. She is one of the founders of Meant to Be events with her husband, DJ Yogi. And we are going to talk today about all the wedding trends, destination weddings. Both of them are sponsors of upcoming India New England Wedding Expo coming up on this Sunday at Burlington Marriott Hotel. The event is totally free for all attendees, so please feel free to come and register before you come. Tanvi, welcome to our studio.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
Sure. And this is your second time?
Yes.
Excellent. So looking forward to chatting with you all the wedding trends, and of course looking forward to seeing Boston Sound and Light and Meant to Be events at the Wedding Expo this coming Sunday on April 21st at Burlington Marriott Hotel.
Yes, we're very excited.
So now the question for you is, people think that is still a lot of weddings happening is still in Boston area, Indian American weddings, but you have a different story to tell. So let's start. What do you think is happening in terms of wedding venues?
Sure. Well, just to back up a little bit, I have been doing wedding planning here in the Boston, New England area for over 15 years now. Prior to COVID, majority of our weddings were here in Boston, as well as the New England area and surrounding states. During COVID, as we all know, the world became completely stopped. No events were happening, no weddings were happening, lots of restrictions. So for almost 2 years, we had no weddings.
It was a very tough time for everybody who was in the wedding and bridal business.
Yeah, very difficult for the wedding industry and all the vendors that had to deal with basically no income, no events coming through. During that time, a little bit by accident, I would say, I became a travel agent just to keep, my mind going, my brain going, and keeping busy myself. Since we had no events to plan, I became a travel agent, not knowing exactly where this would take me. Post-COVID, now that, it's been 3-4 years since the COVID and the pandemic times, we're seeing a huge decline in the local weddings here in Boston area. Our clientele that we service post-COVID, they are looking for something different. They're looking for something out of the norm, not the same old that is typically seen. And I don't mean that in a negative way.
What percentage of weddings are really looking at a destination wedding or out of the US weddings?
Yep. So my clientele, I would say almost 90% is looking outside of this local area.
And what are some of the most popular destinations outside Boston and outside the US?
Sure. We're seeing a very hot trend for Mexico, so specifically Cancun, Riviera Maya area, Los Cabos, Puerto Vallarta, as well as the Caribbean islands. And a lot of these resorts, they want and are attracting Indian clientele or mixed Indian weddings.
So now in the Indian weddings and Indian gatherings, food is a very important aspect because everybody guest wants to have some Indian food.
Yes.
So how these in US I can understand, but what about Mexico and the Caribbean? How you deal with food situation?
Because Indian weddings, South Asian weddings are becoming so popular in these areas, the resorts have Indian chefs that cook.
So you go to Mexico, say Puerto Vallarta.
There is a full Indian menu that is part of the package. You can get your paneer tikka masala, your butter chicken, fresh naan. All of that is available at these resorts.
And they are very familiar with the Indian weddings and traditions and all those.
Oh yeah, they're looking, they have all of the decor, they have all of the various designs that Indian weddings require. They have local vendors like dole players. They have even officiants that have learned the Hindu religion, and they're able to conduct the ceremony. They have mehndi artists, they have hair and makeup artists that can work with South Asian skin tone. So they are well prepped in being able to service an Indian wedding.
So what is the reaction of local hotels? What they are saying, or local wedding venues?
Well, there's definitely a misunderstanding that a tropical exotic wedding in Mexico or in Punta Cana is more expensive. Now, a lot of these resorts offer concessions to the host, and they're giving private events complimentary.
Mm-hmm.
So the big cost here in Boston, or even in US in general, in having a wedding at a hotel is your room rental, is the open bar, and it's the catering.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of your biggest line items on your budget sheet.
Sure.
These resorts abroad in Mexico and the Caribbean are giving complimentary events. So they're giving complimentary cuisine, the open bar, and the event space. So they're telling you, hey, come host your wedding here. And so your cost is significantly reduced.
So what percentage cost is reduced roughly?
So the clientele that I service, I would say their budgets here for a local wedding is anywhere from $250,000 up over $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
If they're looking to do a wedding abroad, that budget can be cut in half, if
really?
not even more.
So why not? This is an incredible thing you were saying. It's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, what are the other trends you are seeing in the weddings, Indian or South Asian weddings?
Mm-hmm. Well, they're looking for exotic. They're
Mm-hmm.
looking for something different. And one of the key things to also remember is that when families have a wedding here in Boston, they have family and friends flying in from all over the U.S.,
sure,
as well as outside of the U.S.
And even from India as well.
Even from India. So if guests are already flying into a destination, families are starting to think, why does it have to be Boston?
Sure.
The clients that we are speaking with and the clients that we service, they're looking for an experience. They're looking for something outside of the norm that.
So what are some of the venues where you have arranged the weddings?
So we do weddings all over Mexico and Caribbean. So many of the beautiful resorts that are accustomed to Indian traditions are the Hard Rock all-inclusive resorts. There's the Palace resorts. There's the Royalton. There's Planet Hollywood. There is the Hyatts. All of these are all-inclusive resorts in Mexico and the Caribbean that offer amazing amenities and really are trying to increase their Indian weddings because they're seeing the decline in the U.S.
Sure. Now, you mentioned about several destinations in Mexico like Cancun, Puerto Vallarta, etc.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the Caribbean islands which are very, very popular?
Yeah, so I would say Dominican Republic is very popular, specifically Punta Cana. Jamaica is also a very popular location for Indian weddings.
And what about the size of the crowd there? For example, like typically, what is how many guests attend these destinations?
Yeah, that's a great question. You would think a smaller number of guests are attending these Indian weddings in Mexico or the Caribbean. Actually, most of our weddings are over 200 guests. So 200 guests are flying from all over the world to Mexico or the Caribbean to attend a wedding celebration for over 4 days.
Now, so now tell us about meant to be events.
Yes. So
what is meant to be events? What you do and how do you work?
At Meant to Be Events, we are a wedding planning company as well as a travel agent for you for your destination wedding. We do destination weddings all over Mexico and Caribbean and can help you with the room selection, the type of resort you're looking for, all the way down to the wedding day with the wedding planning services that we offer, from helping you select your vendors, whether they're from the US or whether they're local. We can help you from all of the planning from A to Z.
That's a great service. Now, I also want to come back to some of the trends about the wedding. And I'm just going to shoot you some questions and feel free to answer or not answer them.
Sure.
My first question is about as the demographics has changed here of Indian Americans and South Asians, and the population is much larger today. What trend you see in intercultural or interracial marriages here?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So the intercultural and interracial South Asian marriages are increasing day by day.
Can you put a number like what percentage you see that?
I would say 50-60% are intercultural, interreligion, interracial. So even when we do destination weddings, it's not just the Hindu wedding ceremony. There are Sikh ceremonies that are being celebrated, as well as Catholic, Christian.
Okay. So how, if you go into the interracial or intercultural marriages, what about other vendors, like, the clothing, etc.? Mm-hmm. How that plays a role into that, and where these people are finding those clothes?
Yeah, I mean, it's still quite popular to go shopping in India. A lot of families or couples that have the bandwidth and time to travel to India are going to India to do their shopping. For those that cannot, there's still lots of options in the larger cities, such as New York, in the New Jersey area. A lot of families go to Chicago, even LA. So if families don't have the capability to travel all the way to India, the clothing is still available.
What about Boston market? Because Boston is also a quite sizable market.
Yeah.
And I always hear about two things. People complain about, there's not a good enough store for the Indian clothing, etc. Mm-hmm. And also they also complain about, there's not a very good, fancy, relaxing Indian restaurant here in Boston. Mm-hmm. So I want you to talk a little bit of, is it true or is it just imagination?
We hear the same thing from our clients, that the options here in Boston are limited when it comes to venues, when it comes to catering, when it comes to, the various categories. Sure, we do have options, but when you look a little bit outside of Massachusetts, the options increase tremendously. And so that's another reason why a lot of the Boston clientele is looking to go outside of this area because of the options that are limited.
What about changes? Any particular trend you have seen in dresses? What type of dress is more popular?
Mm-hmm. I mean, Indian fusion, I don't see as many saris.
Really? In India, there could be no wedding without saris, but
there are still saris, but a lot of the palazzo pants and in trying to mix in the Western and American clothing styles is very popular. And for destination weddings, when you're on a beach, you don't want something as heavy and embroidered either. You want something more lightweight. And
so for the destination weddings, say Mexico or the Caribbean, what is the timing? Talk us about, these are the months which are really busy for the destination weddings.
Sure. So we're seeing the busiest months from November through about April, May. As it gets hot here in the summertime, it's even hotter down south.
Sure.
So the November through April months are the most popular months that we're seeing.
For the destination weddings outside the Boston and US.
Yes.
But then the summer becomes busy here, right?
Summer is busy here as the weather here is more pleasant, less likely for rain. So we're definitely seeing more local weddings during the summertime here.
Okay. What about decors? Have you seen any change, or is it the same thing, like the style of decor or stage, etc.?
Yeah, decor in these destination locations is similar to India. If I had to compare, you have access to beautiful florals, greenery, the labor and the teams of decor that they have in these locations have a lot of manpower. So they are able to put together any design. They work in a shorter period of time. For example, if you have an event on the beach, you can't have the flowers on the beach for 6-7 hours. The flowers will wilt away. So they're able to work faster, and the designs that are done are just beautiful and definitely not what we see here in the Boston area.
Sure. And so what about talk about the priest? I also hear there's a lot of shortage of priests even just here in Boston. How that is playing a role today?
Yeah, actually, some of the destination cities have local officiants that have learned Sanskrit, that have learned the Hindu religion, and can perform the ceremony.
I would love to hear a Mexican doing the ceremony in Sanskrit.
Yeah.
But have you seen that?
I have seen that, yes. It's quite common in the Cancun area. However, many times the officiant is flown in just because families find that part of the wedding to be more personal, more intimate, and they want to have a specific person to conduct the ceremony that may know the religion and their background more.
Okay, so now let's come back to intercultural or interracial marriages. In that context, what is the reaction of non-Indian grooms or brides? How their families react to this?
Very positively.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen any clients that have any, disputes or any negativity during events or even prior to, because we see a lot when we do the planning with both families.
Mm-hmm.
Very acceptable. I've been blessed with having to work with families where it's not a dispute or a segregation between them.
Okay, so now if you look at the weddings, who are the key? I would say the vendors. So what type of you must have to have in a good wedding?
Mm-hmm.
So of course you have to have a food.
You need to have an amazing wedding planner.
Amazing wedding planner, which I'm talking to right now.
Food,
mm-hmm.
music,
mm-hmm.
and photo, video
to
capture the memories,
and
decor. And when you do destination weddings, audio-visual, speakers, lighting,
and of course,
all of that.
And of course, bride and groom, right?
Obviously, the bride and groom,
okay.
yes. But when we do destination weddings, I would say that 95% of the planning is done with the bride and groom. They're the ones driving the conversation, making the decisions on all the event details.
So you work with both. Doesn't matter. The background.
Of course, no, we don't.
So now, as a wedding planner,
yes,
there have been so many, Hollywood and Bollywood movies about wedding planners, and some really very interesting stories, behind the wedding. Have you watched any one of them?
I've seen. I definitely have seen some of the movies.
So what do you think of those type of things? Does it really happen in real life, or they're just movies?
I would say a lot of it is made up for the movies, but every time you work with a new family, there's always different dynamics between relationships, who gets along with who. So as a wedding planner, there's a lot of you see a lot of the true colors of people come out,
mm-hmm.
Because we're talking to them about finances and a lot of personal information as we're planning with the families for almost a year.
So I know you mentioned earlier this just basically the bride and groom who are involved.
Mm-hmm.
What in Indian wedding, the parents also play a very important role. Do they have any say or less and less say in the weddings?
It's becoming more that we work with the bride and groom. And at the very end, once all of the planning is finished, then we meet with the parents and go through all of the details. But really, it's being driven by the bride and groom. We're seeing a huge increase in destination weddings. A lot of families looking outside of this local area. Even though Boston's my home and I love Boston, families are just looking for something different, something new, something outside of the norm that they're typically used to. And so destination weddings are one way to go.
Tanvi, thank you so much for your time. And we are looking forward to seeing you on Sunday at the Wedding Expo.
Yes, we're excited. Thank you so much.